Hello and welcome to lecture number 3. In this lecture, we will discuss compliance, the delicate balance that rules software commerce. Depending upon the go-to-market scenario through which an entitlement was delivered, granted at one extreme, there may be a unique entitlement for each deployment. At the other extreme, there may be a blanket agreement that allows unlimited deployment. Of course, there exists every case in between, and in both cases, the customer should evaluate carefully what is for the sake of the organization, if it's better to purchase products individually or bundled with other products that add value and needed on the daily work of the organization. Or a blanket agreement is the most cost-effective solution and it will not be an exaggeration. There is also the consideration that for most large enterprise customers, deployments of different products may have been granted as a result of multiple agreements, which in turn have probably been made at different times, perhaps even with the different channel suppliers for the same product. In this case, a central inventory of licenses is necessary to know exactly what are the current entitlements of the organization for the different licenses and vendors. To complicate matters further, there may be multiple agreements in place concurrently. This is another common case, and in this case, there is a golden chance for optimization by consolidating the different agreements into one agreement to facilitate the contractual and technical management of the licenses, and deciding on the strategic supplier and managing the relation with him proactively as well. Also, decentralized purchase process is a dominant case now in many organizations, and we have discussed this before. This leads to purchasing licensing away from the central purchasing department, and this leads that some purchased licenses, the organization know nothing about it or about its entitlements. Thus, entitlement management and the understanding of entitlements is a very complex process that can change depending upon the point in time at which the entitlement measurement is taken. As when corresponding deployments are measured in order to match against entitlements, the license model or business rules for product usage for any given product frequently change from release to release. Therefore, it's important to attempt to identify each deployment uniquely, as well as understand the version and release date for each product deployment. In this situation, the deployment report could look identical for two different versions of the product since the functional model is the same for each. However, the entitlement purchases may be different for each and therefore have an impact on the compliance assessment. To further complicate matters, the entitlement for any single deployment may not be valid for another deployment of an identical release, as the business rules governing the entitlement for any deployment may be unique. This figure illustrates the four-layer approach to compliance. As can be seen in the compliance scenario, simply understanding the deployment and the individual licenses acquired is not sufficient to understand whether compliance is in place or not. It's necessary to understand the model for each individual deployment and the contract terms under which the license was acquired. Such confusion can easily present a problem in the relationship between the customer and the vendor. Therefore, once an acquirer, end user, has received both software and license, it's desirable for both the supplier and the user that the usage of the software matches the entitlement or license to use. The previous figure illustrates the four-layer approach to compliance. As can be seen in the compliance scenario, simply understanding the deployment and the individual licenses acquired is not sufficient to understand whether compliance is in place or not. It's necessary to understand the model for each individual deployment and the contract terms under which the license was acquired. Such confusion can easily present a problem in the relationship between the customer and the vendor. Therefore, Once an acquirer end user has received both software and license, it's desirable for both the supplier and the user that the usage of software matches the entitlement or license to use. This paradigm is fundamental to the concept of compliance. The single rule that governs whether a customer is in compliance with respect to their software asset is that for every deployment, there must be an entitlement that allows the specific deployment, including the usage of that deployment. Compliance is a common goal for both supplier and consumer, but for different reasons, the consumer or end user wishes to ensure that they do not purchase more rights to use than needed, and the supplier wishes to ensure that the end user does not use the supplied software beyond the bounds of the right to use. This situation should remain in place for the entire life cycle of the software usage and its rights to use, both of which may change over the life cycle. Actually, there are many SAM tools in the market, and SAM tools that support the entitlement management or the software entitlement management facilitate very interesting functions. So let's investigate these functions one by one. First, multi-license management to make it easy for customers to access their orders and properly install their purchases, and for organizations to be able to assign and manage multi-license agreements. Entitlement management software should offer the use of multiple license key generators. The software should also be able to manage complex product configurations and initiate support calls to remote or third-party key generators. Additionally, it's important that entitlement management software can generate license authenticity codes for partners, as well as handle batch process activations, rehosts, upgrades, and returns. Finally, the software should be able to manage activation validation rules such as required products, quantities, or combinations. Streamlined upgrades and reducing support and maintenance costs. A big benefit of entitlement management software is that it can simplify the process of software upgrades, giving customers a high level of personalized services, which also decreasing support and maintenance costs. Seek out entitlement management software that provides support for complex product mapping and the changes during an upgrade process, gives options for targeting individual companies or machines for upgrades, and has automatic new key generation. The software should also have the ability to push out critical patches and determine the number of affected customers prior to an upgrade. Flexible usage tracking. As the IoT continues to proliferate our current business landscape, the ability to capture and report on the data generated by smart devices will be increasingly critical. Luckily, entitlement management software can collect and report on smart device usage. In fact, such software can receive usage information and associate it with individual devices, and it can also connect devices to customers through registration processes. Organizations should implement the entitlement management software that can track usage against entitlements, report on usage by devices and customers, and support pay-as-you-use and other usage-based business models. Content download control. Effective entitlement management software should be able to control access to online resources and downloads and ensure that only customers who are entitled can gain access to restricted files. The software should also provide content producers with a secure way to deliver electronic data via out-of-the-box integration with a leading content delivery network provider or via URL and FTP-based downloads. Entitlement management software should also be able to track download initiations and offer the ability to limit the number of times a file is downloaded by any one customer. Real-time reporting. Along with flexible usage tracking, reporting is one of the key benefits of entitlement management software. Organizations should implement software that provides detailed insights into which customers are activating which products on what platform, what is purchased versus deployed, how often products are rehosted or returned, who is requesting temporary licenses and who is eligible for renewals and upgrades. Entitlement management software should offer the ability to run such reports in real time and also have the ability to create additional custom reports. Lastly, the software should have its own siloed database to ensure its reporting does not slow down transaction processing. Given the momentum of the IoT in an increasingly competitive market for software publishers and service providers, now is the time for the organizations to prioritize entitlement management and leverage dedicated software to help them do so. Entitlement management software should support the full life cycle of license and entitlement management functions, including perpetual, term, and trial licenses, maintenance, and support. It should offer key capabilities including multi-license management, streamlined upgrades, flexible usage tracking, content download control, and real-time reporting. And these were the main functionalities that a SAM tool can help you to manage, can help you to automate in your organization, and thus have a proactive management control, a continuous up-to-date vision on the software license and the entitlements and the performance of the software in your environment, and thus enables you to help your organization to increase profit and reduce costs. Thank you very much, and see you next lecture.